My name is Ginnie Cover. I've been with AXYS for many years, from the time that it was KSNA. I'm the parent of an adult who was diagnosed prenatally back in 1987, before there was widely available internet service or much accessible information about X and Y chromosomes. Participants in the AXYS 2023 Virtual Family Conference may wonder why I'm making a presentation about a novel that addresses X and Y chromosome variations. I've done lots of writing, most of which was nonfiction, and it was related to developmental disabilities, because I'm also a social worker and I spent most of my career working with adults, largely, who had developmental disabilities. I wrote Living with Klinefelter Syndrome, Trisomy X, and 47XYY, which was a guidebook, in 2012, because families and individuals affected by sex chromosome aneuploidy, which we call SCA, needed a summary of available research and practice standards at the time. It needs updating, and I plan to get to that in 2024. The origin of this novel, which has the title Supplemental Needs, is that I started writing short stories once I retired, and then I decided that a fictional portrayal of SCA would be very useful for several reasons. And then the pandemic hit, and it gave me an opportunity to concentrate on fiction because there weren't so many other things occupying my time. One reason that I wanted to write an accurate novel about SCA is that both Klinefelter syndrome and 47XYY, the two conditions that affect males, have only been featured in a few very poorly written and sensational books that build on the myth that these men have criminal tendencies. There's no evidence that these adults are violent and given to murdering people, yet that's what many people believe, which has contributed to a stigma that surrounds extra X and Y chromosome conditions. And although women with trisomy X are not portrayed as criminals, by association with SCA, they may also be stigmatized. Another reason that I wrote the book, which is set in the early 2000s, is that I wanted readers to understand the anxiety and pain of a prenatal diagnosis, especially when some of the medical advice is to terminate the pregnancy, while other advice is given to parents that SCA is manageable. I also wanted readers to understand how SCA can affect a family. I'm not concentrating on the negative, but rather the process of accepting some limitations while learning the joy of a more inclusive attitude as a family. What I hope that participants in this program will get is a desire to read the novel. It will be published in late summer of 2023. I would like to give you the opportunity to read Supplemental Needs and to write a short review. If you'd like a review copy, please email me at ginnycover@gmail.com, which I'm going to put in the chat right now. I'd like you to email me and give me your name, address, and cell phone number, and I will mail you what's called a review copy. It's a copy that goes out before the main publication date. I'm sorry that I can't mail outside of the US or Canada, but that would just be too expensive. However, I would be able to send you an electronic copy if you are outside of the US. I don't charge for this. I would just like to get opinions and reviews by people who know the subject. I'll tell you something about the novel. It's an 83,000 word novel about a family coping with prenatal genetic diagnosis, disability, and sexuality issues against the backdrop of managing family life and careers. It might be categorized as women's fiction, but I think it will appeal to any reader who's interested in family dynamics, and certainly any reader who has any knowledge of extra X and Y chromosome conditions. It will probably appeal to people who are attending this conference because they almost never see themselves in fiction. Families and individuals affected by X and Y chromosome variations often appreciate seeing themselves in fiction. This particular story is told from the perspective of a mother, Rachel, and it should be a realistic portrayal of young parents and their extended families grappling with genetic variation. I'll give you a brief summary of the plot. Rachel and her husband are delighted to be pregnant following years of infertility, but their joy is shattered by a phone call from Rachel's OB with the results of amniocentesis. Their baby boy has an extra chromosome, a genetic condition called Klinefelter syndrome, or 47XXY. They need to make a decision quickly about continuing the pregnancy. Genetic counseling can't predict how his life will proceed because the range of functioning of affected individuals is so broad, from barely affected to significant intellectual and psychiatric disability. A medical geneticist the couple consults advises them to have an abortion. That is what most of his expectant parents in a suburb of New York City do when they learn that their baby has XXY. However, the couple have an extended discussion with a genetic counselor, and they become convinced that if there's any disability, it's likely to be mild. They make the decision to continue the pregnancy, trying to anticipate a largely normal childhood for their son with possible delays. Online chat rooms and internet sites, however, are disquieting. There seems to be substantial stigma attached to this genetic condition, as well as related ones, including XYY, trisomy X, and XXYY. The parents have been advised never to disclose the diagnosis, which bothers them. Why is there so much silence around these diagnoses, they wonder. They learn that all men with Klinefelter syndrome are infertile, and this suggests questions to some they find regarding masculinity. Other parents on the listservs warn that Klinefelter syndrome might be associated with possible elevated rates of homosexuality and gender dysphoria. It becomes apparent to them from talking with these many families that some of them live with considerable shame surrounding the diagnosis. They've never told their extended families, and they intend never to tell the school. They adjust to enjoying Rachel's pregnancy and not worrying about the future. The baby's birth brings them joy, and they experience his infancy as they would any other babies. Jacob's development proceeds normally at first. The family goes about their normal activities, work, school, and running a household with young children. But a nagging sense that something is not right develops as Jacob approaches his first birthday. At the same time, Rachel's boss at the medical school where she's an administrator leaves for a prestigious new position, and a new department chair arrives with his own research coordinator who is hostile to Rachel from the beginning. An evaluation of Jacob's development at 18 months is devastating to the parents. He needs intensive therapy, including speech and occupational and physical therapy. Rachel and her husband Dave learn to navigate the world as special needs parents. They're heartbroken when they're told that he may have intellectual disability. That's what we used to call mental retardation, although later they learn that his IQ is actually in the normal range. The Golds are also close to their parents and siblings, so concerning events are shared by family members. Rachel's sister, the mother of 4 boys, finds her marriage in crisis after her Silicon Valley executive husband has an affair. And Dave's brother, who's an increasingly observant Orthodox Jew, mysteriously ends his marriage and leaves his corporate law firm for solo practice and a life of learning and prayer. Rachel encounters escalating difficulty at work as the new research coordinator undermines her, and her boss fails to back her. He's a favorite of the medical center's administration due to multi-million-dollar pharmaceutical companies' gifts to the institution. She suspects that there's fraud involving his clinical trials, and then she's suddenly demoted to a position of far less responsibility. This convinces her to consider a career change. She's experiencing all of this drama at work while also overseeing her toddler's special needs or special services. I wanted to make sure that readers understand that parents of children with any special needs don't get to cope with that alone. There are also the needs of other family members and career challenges. Jacob's progress with speech and physical skills is excellent, but he also begins to display some increasingly problematic behaviors, and he's diagnosed with mild autism spectrum disorder. His parents again rise to the challenge, engaging a therapist who coaches them successfully in shaping more adaptive and much less disruptive behavior. Jacob's gender, however, is the subject of a very hurtful rumor at Rachel's place of work. Rachel and Dave resolved to take a candid approach to their child's chromosomal variation, refusing to hide the diagnosis. The storyline has them joining with other parents of children with X and Y chromosome variations to advocate for these individuals, raising awareness and dispelling the myths surrounding sex chromosome aneuploidy. Although I'm the parent of an adult with Klinefelter syndrome, this isn't a memoir. I made it all up. The scenes of the novel are drawn from my experiences as as the parent of a child diagnosed prenatally, as well as my years as a social worker with children and adults with developmental disabilities in their family. This novel addresses disability, genetics, and family diagnostics, and I think you'll find that fiction almost never addresses genetics. I very much hope that you'll read the book and perhaps provide me with a review and recommend the book to book clubs, libraries, and friends and relatives. Sometimes the best way to publicize an unfamiliar concept like extra X and Y chromosomes is with fiction. Again, I want to encourage you to do a pre-reading of a review copy, which I'll send you at no charge, and then send me a short review on a form that I'll provide. You can get supplemental needs by emailing me at ginniecover@gmail.com with your name, mailing address, and cell phone. Thanks.